Kina, KMOX News.
Y98 presents the St. Louis City Soccer Report on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Welcome into the downtown studios for the KMOX St. Louis City Soccer Report. I'm Jennifer Cease, welcoming in Santiago Beltran of the KXOK Spanish broadcast for Nate somebody or other who did not, decide to join us tonight. Poor Nate. He's like, I'm never going to come back. Welcome. Thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to talking soccer for the next 2 hours.
We've got a lot to talk about. So before I have to do this now, because if I don't, I will not do it for 2 hours. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Happy
You
birthday
didn't have to do that.
Absolutely. Happy birthday. In fact, I tried to do a good job of sharing this out. I hate social media. I love it and I hate it because I hate tagging. But I already had a few listeners remind me to wish you happy birthday. And
Oh, that's
I
great.
know they're on top
Thanks,
of it.
everyone.
Thank you, listeners. So is it a happy birthday? Do you want to say the number? Like, is that cool? Is it not?
Yeah.
Be proud. I'm a proud 50. Go for it. What
I'm
are
a
you?
proud 44-year-old.
Oh, see, you could have been like, my youngest brother is 6 years younger than me. There you go. So we're going to hear two hours of the St. Louis City Soccer Report. A lot to talk about. A lot's happened. We haven't had a show for a little over a week. Our last show before the last game, the great win that City had. And then, of course, currently coming off a loss last night. And then we have also to preview the FC Cincinnati game. A lot going on, a lot happening, especially with a midweek game and a pretty loaded show coming up tonight. We will talk, as always, as we always do, with Dale Schilly, our game analyst on Y98, St. Louis City Academy director, along with Maurice Adu. They call him Mo. I got to meet him in the Apple studio last night. He's a whole lot of fun and thought it would be great to connect with him on his thoughts. He can talk about, of course, the game last night, and I'm sure preview what City's going to have to do for Cincinnati. And a busy segment I think we're going to have is Laws of the Game. George Gansner is going to have some explaining to do about certain calls. Santi, I know you have your own questions for him, as well as do I, and he's told me he's got answers ready.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what George has to say.
That's
because,
right.
if you see what the fans are saying, there is a big disappointment. So we'll see what George has to say.
There for sure is. And then, of course, in the second hour, we'll be talking a little bit about the City Futures. They're going to kickstart a new location in DeSoto. We'll talk with Courtney Miller. She's the director of public engagement. We see her often. Santi and I work with her on a weekly basis. She's awesome. Dr. Greg Young, we both had in our booth at halftime, who 4 minutes is not nearly enough to talk about mental performance. Dr. Greg Young will be with us at about 9:15, 9:20, get a little bit more information from him. And then we'll wind down the St. Louis City Soccer Report with St. Louis's favorite, Jim Leaker, president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. They've got their Hall of Fame induction dinner this weekend. So a little preview of that and see if there's any tickets left for people to go to. If they're not, going to be at a watch party for St. Louis City, you should probably be at the Hall of Fame dinner. Is what I'm thinking.
I'll be working, so
me too. In the meantime, it's one of the things that nobody wants to talk about. I certainly, after I heard about it today, we both were in the studio in the press room, and we heard from Edward Lubin. It was one, wonderful to see him, but two, he did share some really tough news from what he's been going through with his family.
It was you could say kind of out of nowhere. Like my wife has had serious health issues, and it got worse and worse, and then she ended up having a surgery, and the truth is now that my wife has cancer, so I want to be very open about that, because I know maybe at a certain point people will know. And also this is also a request, honestly, for my brothers and sisters in Christ all over the world, to pray for my wife for health and courage in that time. It doesn't matter, within the club, family, friends, church, we received flowers, people would bring meals, and it was incredible. We were so many times drawn to tears because of the love of so many people. And obviously sometimes you think, for myself, sometimes you don't even know what's going on within yourself. And sometimes then obviously I talked to my wife the most in that time. And the crazy thing is, even that my wife, she is suffering from with her health issues, and she was most of the time the one encouraging me, and encouraging each other, which is incredible.
So tough news to hear from Edward Lubin. Tougher, I'm sure, for him to go through it with his wife, and also to Santi to look back and when people are missing, we knew at one point in time he was injured and mixed in with stuff you don't know, and people do what people do, and they speculate, and to know that you're going through something like this, just a horrible thing to hear.
Yeah, a lot of speculation about what was going on, and I just seen Edu speak about it. It lets you see that these guys are humans and they go through things, and we wish Edu's wife the best, and hopefully she can recover. But yeah, it was just to me it was very sad. Like I left the press conference, and I started to think about a lot of things, and it was just a sad day for me.
Yeah, and we'll get on to business, of course, like we all do. Everybody moves on, and we all have lives to live and jobs to do. When the guys are out, the pitch is their work, the training room is their work. Even when they meet with us in the media, it's work. When they give us interviews, that's work. We all continue with our lives, but in the meantime, wanted to play that, and just a good reminder to all of ourselves that we're having the luxury for a little bit less now than 2 hours to talk about a game, the beautiful game. And I love the game, but it is a game nonetheless. And the guys that Santi, you and I see on at least several times a week are more than soccer machines, which they are great at, but human beings. And it's a good reminder for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely, and glad that Edu is now back, and maybe he will see some time against Cincinnati, and if not, we will see him soon playing for St. Louis City. But again, he missed a lot of time, so we just have to be patient. And yeah, he's going through a lot of things. It's gonna take some time for him to get back in form.
All right, more to come. Dale Schilly on the other side of the break. Dale was in the booth with me and Joey last night. We'll talk a little bit about City's performance, of course, in the recent loss to LAFC, and of course, their quick turnaround to FC Cincinnati on Saturday. More to come on the Soccer Report here on KMOX.
If you have a problem with the IRS, believe me, it's not going away on its own. The IRS never gives up. They
81. That's 800-575-6281.
Thanks for letting me know.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
If you've been injured in a car wreck, you need the best. Let us make
Case our cause. Car accident? Call Onder Law for a free review at 314 or 618-9000000.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Hour one of the St. Louis City Soccer Report.
Hit Roman Berkey. Time into his left, punches it out of play.
Hour one of the St. Louis City Soccer Report. Jennifer Cease talking over Roman Berkey's save, which should have done. Santiago Beltran sitting in for Nate Gerber, and on the phone, joined now by Dale Schilly, St. Louis City Academy Director and analyst in the booth almost every game for Y98. Dale Schilly, thanks for joining us. And initial thoughts on the night. So we're still trying to connect a little bit with Dale. In the meantime, of course, Santiago, win or loss, however you want to call it, always bailed out by Roman Berkey. And I know those two goals that didn't save, but also you're coming up superhuman if you save either one of those against Denny Bouanga.
Yeah, Denny Bouanga. One of the top in MLS, and he missed some early, but I knew at some point he was going to get to some that he was going to make. He has taken a lot of shots this year, and last night to get 8 goals. But Roman Berkey, in none of those two had to do and not fall or anything like that.
Well, what's right now is Dale with us? Dale joining us? Awesome. Sorry about that. Dale, so I talked a little bit about, of course, it didn't end up coming up with the result on the night, but of course, Roman Berkey coming up big, as he always does for the team. And Santi and I were just kind of talking about how you almost have to be superhuman to probably take on any of those two that Denny Bouanga put in the back of the net.
Yeah, look, you're not gonna catch Denny Bouanga from the midfield line when he has a 5-yard head start on you, whether he has the ball or not. And just his movement and the ball from Bogusz on that first goal was just really good. I mean, just made a little eye contact, and Danny kind of made a flat run across the back four and waited for the ball to get played in behind. And again, once he's off, it is really difficult. And his first touch when he received it hit Marcanic away from the ball, and he buried it. So, yeah, tough game. Disappointing to not come away with some points where we played in that first half.
Dale, could the defense have done anything better on that play?
I'm wondering on that first goal, I'm wondering what was Totland in line with his group? Was he dropped off a little bit because it's close to being offside? There's a little bit of a gap there. In the moment where a player has the ball without pressure and he's back in midfield where Bogusz was, you have two choices. Either you hold the line or you drop off as a group. And, whether we made the right choice there or not, obviously they got in and scored. It was a great pass and a great run. But, yeah, that's one of the keys. Now, Coach Carnell will say we need more pressure on the ball, but they move the ball so well and they're so good playing on the counter that it's really hard sometimes to get enough pressure on the ball so they don't see those passes.
Yeah, Dale, as you know, I like to review you toward the end of every Y98 pregame we do for the show. It always starts about 30 minutes before kickoff, and Dale goes through right towards the end of it 3 questions. And I know one of the questions was, of course, goalkeeper Lloris matching up against Roman Berkey. On the way to the studio, Santiago and I talked about the fact that we didn't really know if there was a true, one upper or there. But I wanted to check in on your other 2 questions that you had and against the performance of the team on the night.
Now you're testing my memory.
You had it in a big Word document, you remember?
That's right. The second one was, can we win in possession? So in the first half, I thought that we were quite good. And I thought that we were good in possession and we were good at moving the ball to try to create some chances. I felt Klaus got a little bit out of sorts. Maybe pressing too much after he missed the PK. He started finding himself in the outside channels, and when we needed to be able to find our big man in the box to help us find chances at goal, he wasn't around. But I thought the first half we did well. I thought the second half, after they scored and they sat back in and just defended around the 18, it felt like we didn't have any ideas how to get in, just because of the sheer numbers. I mean, I remember looking at one point, 10 field players plus a goalkeeper within 30 yards of their own goal. And when guys are organized enough and they've got all those numbers in there, they're all good players, it is virtually impossible to get in and create an opportunity. So that was a big one. I think the other one maybe was it about Oliveira and
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was about Oliveira and Bouanga. Just how are we going to deal with those two guys in those wide channels? And we saw them switch positions. We saw Bouanga trying to get a matchup with Marcanic, which is what the matchup was in the for the goal. And it's no secret, Marcanic is a good player. He's had a really good year, but he's not the fastest of the four guys at the back. And Bouanga found a matchup there, and so I thought we did pretty well with those guys, particularly in the first half. But there's just so much talent in that whole team. It's hard. I'm going to skip all past the three questions. How would you like, Santi, to be able to have Atuesta start as the sixth and bring on Illy Sanchez as a sub in whatever minute it was, to have that sort of quality coming off the bench? Both of those guys could start for any team in the league, and they're bringing one of them off the bench. Incredible.
I know
I
it's
know it's
incredible
incredible
to
to
have the
just have the
luxury of
luxury of
having
having
Illy
Eli
Sanchez
Sanchez
as a
as a
bench
bench
player.
player.
We were
We were
talking
talking
on the
on the
Spanish
Spanish
broadcast
broadcast
about
about
him.
him.
Like
Like
we
we
couldn't
couldn't
understand
understand
why
why
he
he
wasn't
wasn't
resigned
resigned
by
by
Sporting
Sporting
KC a
KC a
couple of
couple of
years
years
ago. And
ago, and
yeah, in
yeah,
the
in
end
the
it
end it
was
was
about
about
money,
money,
and then
and
he
then he
went
went
to
to
LAFC
LAFC
and
and
was
was
key on
key
that
on that
championship they
championship they
won.
won.
Do you
Do you
think that
think that
was the
was the
key on
key
the
on the
second
second
half?
half?
Like
Like
City
City
had a
had a
great
great
first
first
half,
half,
but
but
then
then
on the
on the
second
second
half,
half,
City
City
couldn't
couldn't
get
get
to
to
the
the
final
final
third
third
often.
often.
Do you
Do you
think
think
that
that
was
was
part of
part
it
of it
that
that
Illy
Ili
Sanchez
Sanchez
came in?
came in?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But I tell you what I think was the bottom line was, and it's one of the things I missed. I was kicking myself after the game on the way home. One of the things I missed was who scored the first goal. Who scores the first goal in that game last night? In any game you play against LAFC is going to be the most important. If we score the first goal, then they can't sit deep in that low block, because now they have to come out and chase the game and try to figure out how to score a goal. Gives us opportunities to turn it into a track meet, going back and forth and up and down the field. They score the first goal, and immediately they sit back in. I said it on the broadcast. The assistant coach at LAFC is a guy named Mark Dos Santos, a really good coach, and all of his teams won championships in the lower levels, in the NASL, a couple of championships in the USL. And his teams have always sat deep and played on the counterattack. And you cannot score goals off of that team because of the numbers and the organization they have and the commitment to defending in the back half of the field. So once they go up on you, watch out. And then when you got Bouanga and Oliveira on the two flanks, and there's all that space behind your back four because they're sitting deep and you're trying to figure out how to score a goal, it's just so dangerous, and it's really hard to prepare for.
Thanks, Dale. We will check in with you as we get closer to Cincinnati, and I look forward to talking to you from the booth as you'll be out there for another away game.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dale. That's Dale Schilly, match analyst on Y98 for St. Louis City SC and St. Louis Academy Director, City Academy Director, with us on the other side of the break. Another guy, match analyst, that was in the other booth adjacent to ours, Maurice Adu, Mo, as they call him, former professional player and now Apple TV broadcaster on MLS Season Pass. We'll talk to Mo next on KMOX.
Chesterfield Fence and Deck is the sign you have the very best. And if you have had somebody build
Anthony Mechanic at the second attempt has once again exposed the Achilles heel for LAFC. They cannot defend set pieces, and once again they conceded from what St. Louis City lead.
But give credit to Anthony Marcanic. Watch him as he just creeps into his spot. It's zone defending, so he gets a good run in his attempt on goal, able to rise over the backside of Edward Atuesta, but then it's the reaction. It's the quick reaction to win the initial ball, but then that quick strike to beat Hugo Lloris at the far post.
Back on the St. Louis City Soccer Report with Jennifer Cease and Santiago Beltran. You heard the voices. They are Apple TV, MLS Season Pass play-by-play, Keith Costigan, and his partner, Maurice Adu, joining us. Mo, I know it was nice to meet you last night in the booth.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you as well. Good to meet you, but unfortunate the way the game went and the result went for you guys. But yeah, definitely was a good chance to get to meet you.
And I wanted to play that clip because it was a moment, of course, and I think you can speak on it in a number of ways. One could have been, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but could have been a game-turning kind of thing. Of course, also with the potential, penalty kick that was missed. And, you were a rookie. You were a former professional player. You were rookie of the year. And Anthony Marcanic is kind of still a rookie. And in one night, probably has one of his highest moments and then a low moment all in one game.
Oh, yeah, trust me, I can speak to that on quite the grand scale, because something similar happened to me at the World Cup in 2010, where I scored a goal. And to this day, we still haven't got a clear-cut answer on what the actual call was. And I mean, when you watch the replays back, there's no call to be made. But yeah, this is what sports bring you, especially at a young age. It's a roller coaster wave of emotions, and it's all about your reactions, how you react to the next moment, because the game happens so quickly. So you don't get those chances. Obviously, his play happens right before halftime, so he does get a chance to kind of digest things, get his emotions back in check. But normally, if it happens in the run of play or, earlier in the half, you don't have that chance to really digest things. You got to just process it as quickly as possible and just get prepared for the next moment.
Maurice, and LAFC ended up scoring 2 goals on the second half, but the first half, at least from what we saw, we like what St. Louis City SC did. What do you think was the difference on the second half for LAFC?
Yeah, I actually thought the first half, St. Louis played really well. We just talked about it. They had 2 clear-cut chances to score goals, the penalty kick that was saved, and then the goal that was taken back off of the handball. But I thought in the first half, St. Louis looked comfortable, and they created chances in different ways. We know that this is a team that's really good in transition. They're really good with their pressing, with their counter-pressing, winning the ball off of the opponent in dangerous areas, and that leading to chances straight away. But what impressed me was how comfortable they were building out of the back, being patient at times, breaking lines with vertical passes that now put your players in dangerous positions. But then also in the final third, the movement off the ball, the counter movements to create space for whether it's wide players to make runs in behind, or Shaw Klaus, his movement to create space, dropping in at times a link of play, but then always just making sure that he's present in the box. I thought in the first half, St. Louis looked really good. They created the better chances, I would say. But in the second half, LAFC did a really good job of defending their own 18. So all the balls that were crossed into the box, any service that was played into the box, I thought both center backs, Jesus Murillo and Aaron Long, did a really good job of keeping their back line organized and just really limiting the space that St. Louis was able to find in the first half, especially in and around the 18.
I am so glad you talked about movement, because there was a point in the second half, Roman Berkey and Denny Bouanga kind of went off at the end line, and Roman was holding his shoulder a little bit. Denny checked on him. It was fine. Roman goes to restart, and they can probably turn this into a meme, but he kind of looks around at his team, very frustrated at City, because nobody's moving. Nobody's moving into space. And it seemed like I was just watching for that as I watched and listened to you and Keith talk about the play. It just seemed like some of that dynamic and creative movement from City that was so prevalent in the first half kind of died off for some reason in the second half. And I don't know if that was them or like what you were talking about, that LAFC just made it really hard for them to find those spaces.
I think it was a little bit of both. You could tell the way that the second half started that there was a distinct change in terms of how LAFC wanted to defend. They were willing to make it compact, and almost in the first half, me and Kip were talking about it after the game. The first half actually played out how a second half normally plays out in a game, where it's a lot more open, really transitional, a lot of space to exploit in wide areas or a space to exploit in transition moments. And that's how the first half played out. In the second half, I feel like there were moments where the game was more measured. And LAFC did a good job of sitting back and almost daring St. Louis City to break them down, saying, okay, we dare you to find ways to be creative, someone to take the initiative to beat us off the dribble or to beat us with a quick combination play. And there were moments, there were fleeting moments in that second half, but nowhere near what we saw in the first half from St. Louis City. And ultimately, when you look at the chances that were created in the first half versus those in the second half, Hugo Lloris wasn't tested as much in that second half.
Maurice, and now a quick turnaround for St. Louis City going to Cincinnati, a team that has won their last 5 games and is one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. What should we look forward on Saturday night when St. Louis visits Cincinnati?
Cincinnati is such an interesting team because I think coming into this season, a lot of the criticism that pundits, that us analysts had was where are the goals going to come from? You know, they trying to find ways to replace the production of Brandon Vasquez, of Brenner, who also left last season. Aaron Bupenz has been out there, their DP. But the thing that they do so well, Cincinnati, is they defend like crazy. If you look at their track record over the course of this season, you go back to last season, the amount of games that they win either 1-0 or 2-1 or, you know, just very, very fine margins, it's because they defend so well. So although their attack hasn't been flourishing and scoring goals in the way that we saw at times last season, they always give themselves a chance because their defense is just elite. They limit the amount of chances that they give up. If you go and look at their track record this season, I don't know if there's a game that they've conceded more than 2 goals against any opponent in MLS this season. So that's the biggest challenge, especially on the road against them when they're playing at home, is can you find ways to play like St. Louis did in that first half, where the movement is to draw center backs out of position to create space centrally, to create overloads in certain areas, quick movement off the ball. When you win the ball back in transition, can that first ball be forward to break lines as opposed to sideways to allow the defense to get reset again? So all those little tactical nuances and different scenarios that present themselves in games, St. Louis has to be sharp. They have to be sharp. And the other part of that is they have to take their chances because, as I said before, Cincinnati is not a team that gives you a ton of chances, especially at home. Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga, whether it's Ian Murphy on the opposite side, if DeAndre Yedlin is fit, I think he's been a great addition to that back line. They are a team that is really stout defensively, and that's been the bread and butter of that team the last 18 months or so.
Mo, thanks for being with us and have a great game with Keith. Nashville SC, I think you guys are on with Atlanta United on Saturday. It looks like 1:45 Eastern. Have a great call.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it. That was Maurice Adu. He is a professional soccer player. He's awesome. He was fun to meet in the booth, and I love listening to him also on Apple TV. Again, you can catch those guys on Apple TV for Nashville SC and Atlanta United at a different time, so it won't be conflicting with St. Louis City's game, and hopefully we'll see that team back in St. Louis. More to come. We've got a lot to talk about. I keep getting texts from George. He's got a lot of things. Laws of the game coming up next, right here on the Soccer Report on KMOX.
What does it take to run an 85-year-old third-gen
We want to be your new plumber. 314-500-LEAK. Tell them Bo sent you to Beast Plumbing.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
I'm just saying there's a certain rhythm of the game. And credit to my boys for, showing a grit and a desire, gutsy. And unfortunately, things didn't go their way, our way. We move on.
That was Coach Carnell after St. Louis City fell to LAFC last night in the press conference room, saying a lot without saying a whole lot at all. And he's talking about something we all want to talk about. It's that time.
Now, laws of the game.
Santiago Beltran, Jen Cease here with you. Santiago, do you like George's intro music as much as he does?
I love it.
No, stop. No, you don't. Okay, so no. So far today on Twitter, he's gotten a bat signal and got compared to Metallica's Sandman. So it'll be a done. And I'm not calling him Gansman, Jason Goodbody. I'm not calling him that ever. So George, a lot, and you sent me a list. We have a list because you did your due diligence. Good job, and went through the game. All right, let's dispel some myths or get some clarification. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, well, let's start with the fact that I was on an airplane last night for the second half and watched the first half on the Odyssey, or listened to the first half on the Odyssey app last night. And I knew by the time I landed and my phone blew up that tonight was going to be interesting. So let's start at the 12th or 13th minute there. It's when the initial VAR is done for the handball in the penalty area by LAFC. And what I want to start with is the fact that resulted from a corner kick that should have been a goal kick. Okay, so it's pretty clear goal kick that was given as a corner that then turned around and results in what is a clear handball. The ball is served across from the penalty or from the corner kick. It eventually gets over to Klaus, who chases it down. He's serving the ball back across. The defender goes out and jumps. His arms are in an unnatural position. He's in the penalty area. The ball deflects off of his right arm as he's turning his back, and it's a clear penalty. So the referee's got that right. We can move to the second handball, basically. Real quick, I want to touch on Markanic's yellow card, the first one.
Yeah, because when you came home, you said you hadn't seen the first one, so you got a better look at that today. Yeah,
so much better look at that today. That is a clear yellow card. That is a reckless tackle. If his leg is straight and it's not, or his studs are directly into the player's foot, the defender's foot, or there's any excessive force, it becomes a red card. But that is a clear yellow card. So yellow card number 1 on Markanic is absolutely clear. Let's go to the handball for the goal. So this is a matter of the laws of the game. Okay, so the ball hits Markanic's arm, drops to his foot, and he plays the ball in the goal. He is not intentionally doing that whatsoever. But the law says that a ball that hits an arm it doesn't matter what the intention is whatsoever. If a ball hits an arm of an offensive player and then subsequently goes directly into the net from the arm, or the next play is into the arm, or that ball is played by a teammate into the goal, that is not a goal. It is a handball no matter what. It's the only place in the law where they say no matter what happens with the ball hitting the arm, it is a handball every single time. Okay? So that's what happens there. That's very clear.
Hang on. I want to be sure before you keep running through. Santi's here. Do you have any questions about that, Santi? Because I think I mentioned this to you on we rode to work together. We did a carpool today, and Santi was a little surprised at what I kind of tipped your hand at what you might say. Did you have any questions about that?
No, obviously George is the expert, but
Okay.
I think our listeners are probably a little disappointed just because this was one of the things that was most talked about last night. People, at least from what was shown on Apple, people didn't really understand why it was a humble. And there is always that question, or even memes. What's a humble? And it's difficult, but George, it makes sense.
And in this case, Santiago, even we talk about the player being in an unnatural position. That's clear. You can, in this case, when the ball goes directly into the goal, you can have your arms next to your body almost attached. And if it hits your arm, it is still a handball. It's the only place in the entire laws around the handball that is the case. Okay? Cannot score a goal directly from a ball hitting the arm one way, shape, or another. Okay? Had there been a few passes or a defensive challenge and then the ball goes into the goal, we're clean. But that's not what happened, and so it's not a good thing. We can go into the second half, Jen. This is where I want you to go into the notes here to talk about, because there's a few things other than just the red card. So if you can kind of guide a little bit on the notes.
So, one part you talked about when we get into 53, foul given to LAFC for handball, but a slight push to knock Durkin off balance.
Yeah, so this is at the top of the penalty area on the right side. The foul is given to Durkin, who just before that, like as this is the part of the play, he's pushed. It's a really light push. It's not a lot, but he's pushed. And for me, it's a foul. Should have been given as a free kick for St. Louis going in. Joe Dickerson decided not to do that. The player goes down, he grabs the ball. That often happens, and then the handball is given. So that for me again should have been a free kick to St. Louis. It's not what Joe gave. He gave the foul coming out. I don't think anything results from that other than frustration.
Yeah. And at 59, and I actually saw this in quite a few different areas. People were questioning at 59, Bouanga's LAFC goal, 3 players that were apparently keeping him on side. And it can be when somebody is that fast and they turn the corner and take the right angle, it can be really, an optical illusion where you're like, that guy's got to be offside. But three of City was keeping him on.
Yeah, Bouanga made a brilliant run, 2 or 3 steps toward the ball, so back toward the ball, and brought Marcanic with him a little bit late, but he brought him with him, and then he turns and runs, and there are 3 players across the back that keep him onside, and when the ball's played, he's a solid yard onside from Marcanic even. So that is a very difficult decision for the assistant referee, and he got it right.
And I feel like I need to preface this when I promised Matt Baker, he was Santiago Beltran's Flyover Foodie podcast partner that he's currently recording right now, so not available for a phone call, but he sent this in and he said, George, we know sometimes there's a bit more leeway shown when it comes to a second yellow versus a first. If this was a yellow card worthy foul on Anthony, was it also second yellow card worthy? And what he, I believe, is talking about has to be the one at 75, where you're calling it, or was it, no foul on Marcanic, but the second yellow?
Yeah, so it is a second yellow on Marcanic. The foul is given for the slap to the face, okay? Here's my opinion, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this for a few seconds. My opinion is there is no foul there against Marcanic. Is there some contact? Yes, absolutely. Marcanic makes an absolute meal of it, in my view. From a referee's perspective, it is not a foul. As he's going down and throws his body to make it appear that there's a foul, so that's embellishment, he swings his arm back and he catches the player above the shoulder. He catches him in the face. Any contact above the shoulder in this type of a situation is a yellow card.
And it doesn't matter if he intended, oops, I didn't mean to slap him in the face.
It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. It's for the hockey fans out there, it's like a stick in hockey. You have to be in control of your stick. Otherwise, you go to the penalty box. This is a case where years ago, players would try to hit each other and they'd hit the body. Back around 2002, 2003, the arms started coming up toward the face, and MLS was telling us, the referees, that has to come out of the game. That has not changed. So contact above the shoulder in this case is a yellow card. Contact above the shoulder, if you have a little bit of a dust up and you have 2 or 3 players standing together and a player puts his hand on the other player's face, if there's any remote push or shove at all, then that's going to happen. That's a yellow card. Okay, so this is not incidental. This is a clear yellow card for a second caution. And the second caution is then a red card. So up until about the 80th minute, I'm solid with what Joe has done in this game. I know that's not popular, but up until that point, there are 2 or 3 things that happened between the 82nd minute and the 87th, I think, minute.
Okay, we've got about 1 minute. So I think we can just dispel the part where AZ, you're saying that in the 80th minute, not a penalty.
Yeah, so for me, that's not a penalty. AZ gets in front of him, feels the push on his shoulder, drops his legs, and goes to the ground. It's not a penalty. Joe's standing right there. He's got a great view of it. Very quick review also obviously reveals the same thing.
All right, so last one real quick. 83rd minute, you talk about Murillo. Did I say his name right?
Murillo.
You wanted to talk about that. It's a denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity, right, Santi?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, this is for me the ball hits his hand. Okay. There's no clear video on Apple TV on Season Pass that shows clearly that the ball hits the player's hand. I think we see it in real time. I don't think it's clear from the video. The players all obviously put their hands in the air. The bench goes bonkers. For me, that is a handball that then is reviewable because it's denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity. That did not happen. So that's the one thing in the entire game that I'm really frustrated about. Outside of that, that's it. The crew did a decent job. And again, I know that's not popular, but by the laws of the game, they did what they needed to do.
Thanks, George. More to come, I'm sure, with FC Cincinnati, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
That was George Gansner, former MLS and FIFA referee who watched the game last night. And, I know mostly he's probably right, Santi.
Yeah.
I don't have to like it. We don't have to like it, but I do like the fact that he called out the later
That
denial of
83rd
goal scoring
minute play.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So more to come. We've covered a lot. More to come on the other side of this break. We got a whole nother hour too on the St. Louis City Soccer Report. We'll talk about that after news right here on KMOX.
I'm Brian Westbrook with Coalition Life. More than 11 years ago, we set out to help women right here in St. Louis. Today, Coalition Life celebrates
City Soccer Report on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Welcome back for hour number 2 of the St. Louis City Soccer Report here on KMOX from our downtown studios. Jennifer Cease here with you, Kyle Sixta on the controls, as he often is, and Santiago Beltran stepping in for Nate Gatter, who is not here today, hopefully back next week with us. But I get to enjoy Santiago's presence at trainings during the week, at press conferences, and we share adjacent booths at City Park for City home games. And of course, he's also with Matt Baker on the Flyover Footy podcast, who are probably, I'm sure, Santi, recording without you at the moment. But happy to have him alongside. We were able to cover last hour quite a few things, actually, talking a little bit, of course, addressing Edward Leuven, addressing the media today about himself and his kind of journey back to the pitch. And of course, the best wishes we can possibly give to his wife in her battle against brain cancer. What a terrible announcement that is just announced today, but they have been going through for quite some time. And of course, the team and everybody in St. Louis is pulling for them. Heard from Bradley Carnell, of course, about his thoughts about calls of the match. Got George Gansner's clarification on many of those calls. And then, of course, the insight from match analysts, both Dale Schilly on the Y98 broadcast, as well as Maurice Adu, who gave us some nice insight, I thought, Santi, for the Cincinnati game. So good. You were taking some game notes, I saw. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I took some notes. That's preparation for Saturday. But yeah, there's going to be a difficult opponent, Cincinnati, and Maurice provided great insight for sure.
So that was hour number 1, but hour number 2, we kind of changed gears a little bit more still, of course, on St. Louis City. There's always a lot to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the mental side of the game. We'll also get to the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. But in the meantime, we'd like to welcome in Courtney Miller. Courtney, Director of Public Engagement for St. Louis City SC. She's joining us, and I feel like we talk to her all the time. Courtney, we talk to you several times a week. Both me and Santi get to work with you. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to do it. It's really fun to get to sit on the other side of things with you guys. So
and not just
I'm
us
bugging
you,
filling in.
and not just us bugging you for guests. You get to be the guest.
I know. I'm getting to fill in tonight for Sasha Bauer, our Director of Regional Training and Education, who is currently traveling. So get to talk tonight a little bit about Kickstart and City Futures.
All right. So I know a little bit about, of course, City Futures. I was there. I think, Santi, maybe you were there too, and they unveiled the mini pitches. My third born, he is in City Futures. He participates. But what is Kickstart?
So Kickstart is kind of our first step. If you're thinking of an introduction to soccer, maybe kids have played a little bit of soccer, but they're not completely full of like what's going on with the fundamentals. Kickstart is a perfect introduction. It's kind of an introductory soccer clinic that gives kids the fundamental soccer skills in a really fun and educational setting. So they use fun games. Our community coaches do a lot with social emotional skills like goal setting, learning how to work through conflicts, and they kind of learn and refine key soccer skills all in a really fun setting with about a 2-hour clinic on the weekends.
Courtney, I'm from there. If a kid really likes the clinic and wants to do more, the next step is City Futures, or what's the next step?
Yeah, so City Futures is kind of builds on itself. So Kickstart is really the first start that you can get into a soccer clinic. And from there, we have weekly soccer sessions called Play On. And Play On is held at 5 locations throughout the region, in the north in Ferguson, in the central location at Harrisville State University, the west in New City, south in Bayless High School, and the east over at Fairmont City, Illinois. And those start typically in March and go for 12 weeks in the fall, and then again in the spring, and then again in the fall, they start in about late August. So that's kind of a more traditional weekly soccer clinic for those who are really looking to build upon their skills, really get into it in a fun, play, practice, play model that allows kids to really come in. They have a lot of fun. They have a lot of games, but it really is about refining skills. So it's not a replacement for league play, but it's building upon that. It's creating that culture of accessible soccer for kids within their own neighborhoods, within their own communities. And so Kickstart, we originally started Kickstart. This all kicked off back in 2022. And typically we've done them in Forest Park, really nice centralized location. But this year we're taking it to the neighborhoods, taking it into communities so that we can really try to work with local schools and local organizations to bring more kids in to our Kickstart programs to give them that sort of introductory flavor of what it's like to get out and love soccer. And hopefully they build upon that interest, and the kids who then can go on to play on. We even have a play on select for those kids who are really building into the program and show that extra talent, that they can go on to the Play On Plus program. And it just provides additional opportunities for kids who maybe soccer is not the most accessible in their communities, or maybe they just want another edge to kind of move forward with their journey in soccer, whether it's they're looking towards, you know, playing in an academy, playing in high school, on to college, even professional. So I think it's really about building the most accessible soccer culture we can in St. Louis, but in a very accessible way that starts within the community.
And from what I understand, it may feel like, oh, this is kind of new, but City Futures has been in the works for a while. I think you shared with me a while ago, a long time ago, or maybe not so long ago, there was a time when everybody sat around a table and planning this first team and planning St. Louis City. And but also a priority was something like a program like this. One of the priorities of Lutz Pfannenstiel and the ownership group was to have a vision of neighborhood soccer culture.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out that City Futures actually really was one of the first priorities for the ownership group and for Lutz. And they were starting to think about that as early as 2020, 2021. And so when Sasha Bauer came on in early 2022 and really kicked off City Futures a year before City itself had even come together, before we had a roster, before we had a team, the City Futures program was already off and running. And that's a testimony to, you know, I think like Lutz and Sasha, you know, those are global soccer players, right? They've played in all across the world, and they know that the way you build soccer culture is by building it in the streets, in the communities, in the neighborhoods. And in order to continue St. Louis's soccer legacy, you have to have that sort of culture. You have to have people who are, you know, kids just playing it in the streets, in their yards, in their local parks, in their schools. And City Futures is really trying to build that culture. So in addition to these clinics and the Play On, we're also building mini pitches across the region. We've got 2 of them so far. One's over in Fairmont City, and the other one is in DeSoto Park, which is actually where the Kickstart is going to be this Saturday. And we're going to continue to build more of those on through 2026 when the World Cup is here. And that's through a partnership with U.S. Soccer and American Family Insurance. And the idea is to put these mini pitches in neighborhood parks within neighborhoods where they don't have a lot of soccer infrastructure already kind of built in, but in a way that the local kids and families can feel like they own it. So they can come out and they can, you know, play little tournaments, play street soccer, you know, have that kind of like fun, just get out there and do some pickup games, because that's what really builds and continues that legacy of soccer. Because when you think about how St. Louis, our original soccer legacy that we're so famous for in the 1950s, that's what it was, right? Like kids were playing in their parishes, they were playing in their neighborhoods, through immigrant families from Europe, and then again later on from Central and South America, over in Africa. That continues today. And in order to continue our legacy as America's first soccer city, we have to have that culture of street soccer, kids playing it all throughout the region. And that's really the point of City Futures, is to empower kids and coaches and families to just have that sort of accessibility all throughout the region.
What type of feedback have you received from parents and from coaches about these programs?
Well, you can ask Jen, like I said, because because Liam is in our plan program.
I like it.
I think overall kids love it. And the reason why is because, you know, when they go, they know that the point is to have fun, it's to grow as individuals, and it's to grow as a team. So there's a lot of emphasis. It's not so much just drills. It's not just about building your skill set. There's always in the social emotional learning component that they have to focus on. So whether it's goal setting or learning how to box breathe or learning how to like reset when you've had like a moment where maybe you didn't make the goal, and it's like, how do you reset your mentality, which I know your next guest will talk a little bit about. That's really part of the whole program. And I think the kids like that because they're used to just sort of drill, you know, scrimmage. And they come to City Futures, and it's more about the holistic development, and the coaches themselves really buy into it. And so they have that passion for it. Sasha has that passion for it. And then sort of it just trickles down to the kids. So our feedback has been very positive. Typically, Kickstarts they pretty much fill up within the first day that registration opens. But we actually have a few more spots available for the Kickstart that's this Saturday, May 18th. It's from 8:30 to 12 at DeSoto Park in St. Louis. It's a great soccer park. For any of you who are familiar, there's a lot of pickup games. I think the St. Louis's Latino League plays out there. So it has a great history of soccer going on. It's also one of our locations of our mini pitches. And we've got a few registrations still open. So if anyone's interested, it's up on my Twitter handle. It's @CourtSloger on X. You can go and the Form Stack link is right there. You can sign up. It's free. Kids get snacks, water, a free city soccer ball, and they get to have fun with our community coaches, who I have to say are like really tremendous individuals and really passionate about what they do. So it's a lot of fun.
You had me at snacks, water, and free city soccer ball. and Courtney's Twitter handle is @Court, COURTSLOGER. But if that's a hard one, we just retweeted it also on KMOX. So go to KMOX Sports and you can see Courtney's tweet, and then you can grab the link there. Super easy to grab too. And best of luck. I'm sure that after this conversation, it's going to be like, never mind, no more spots.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys helping us get the word out. The more kids who get introduced to the beautiful game, the more that St. Louis continues its love of soccer.
That's right. Thanks, Courtney. We'll see you. We'll talk to you soon, actually, about the Cincinnati game.
Sounds great. Talk to you guys later.
That was Courtney Miller. She's the Director of Public Engagement for St. Louis City SC. She works with a bunch of us also in the media, handling our multiple requests for interviews just like this. So nice to actually have her, though, on the air. Again, Kickstart presented by Sumner One with St. Louis City SC, DeSoto Park in St. Louis. This weekend, registration 8:30 a.m., session 9 to 12, and there are still some spots available. You can find that KMOX Sports on Twitter or X. We just retweeted that out. Definitely sign up. Well worth it. Coming up next, more really along the same vein, Dr. Greg Young, who joined both Santiago and I in each of our booths for the City game. 4 minutes is not enough time to talk about the mental performance side of any performance. Greg Young will be with us next on the KMOX Soccer Report.
1 in 4 people surveyed by Bankrate.com say they're literally losing sleep because of worries that they may have not saved enough to retire.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Hour number 2 of the St. Louis City Soccer Report right here on KMOX. Jennifer C. Santiago Beltran with you, along with Dr. Greg Young. Now, we had him. Dr. Greg Young is a certified mindset performance coach. He is also, works for as the director of mental performance for St. Louis City SC, certified mental performance consultant, and he's got a great background. And I had Santiago, I don't know if you heard about it, but when we did our halftime interviews with Dr. Young, I got a bunch of texts that was like, "That's awesome! It was such a great interview. He so much great information." And really, we only have, like 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes maximum.
Yeah.
Do you get 5? Because I only get 4.
I got 5.
I get
yes.
4. Okay, you only get 4.5 next time.
Sorry if I stole 30
you stole
seconds
30
of yours.
seconds for me. But what I thought would be great is to have Dr. Young here. We can kind of maybe do a replay of that. And then our show, is I haven't really talked about yet, not only is it on 11:20 a.m., it's on FM as well as online. It's free on the Odyssey app. And then the show gets downloaded and recorded as a podcast so people can go through and share this. It's a great resource for all of us, really, when we're all performing under stress, and especially kids at this time of this year. I've got a high schooler graduating from high school. Some kids are ending high school seasons, going on to college seasons. Oh, by the way, youth tryouts are around the corner. It's a stressful time. We all need mental performance training. Dr. Young, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you both.
Absolutely. And I know you said you might be in your jammies, and we don't want to keep you too long. For a late night, because I know you have long days with St. Louis City, but wanted to get your quick background. We did a little bit last night, but just your background overall and how you wind up getting to be a part of the mental game.
That is a great question. Well, I sort of stumbled into the mental game a little bit as I trained as a physical education teacher, and that was the path that I was going to go down and pursue. And from there, one of the things that I experienced was a course in sports psychology and a course in motor behavior and motor learning, which is slightly different to sports psychology, but very, very complementary. And I really found my passion. It was something that I was just super interested in. I had a really good teacher. The material was really interesting, and it gave me a lot of understanding as an athlete myself, why I was doing some of the things that perhaps I should have been doing, and why I wasn't doing some of the things that I was doing. And to be perfectly honest, that was something that really piqued my interest. So I went back to graduate school after I'd finished my undergraduate degree, studied sports psychology and motor behavior at the University of Tennessee, did my master's there, did my PhD there, and then went into the big wide world of academia. So I bounced around a couple of different universities as an instructor, as a senior lecturer, back in Liverpool in England, and then back over to James Madison University, where I spent about roughly 5 years. And then most recently, before my role here at St. Louis City, was with IMG Academy, working down there in their mental conditioning, now mental performance department. Now I'm in the world of professional soccer, which I'd always wanted to be in. I would have loved it to be as a player, but here we are.
Dr. Young, tell us about your role with St. Louis City SC.
Yeah, so my role is a pretty unique one. There's not many clubs in the MLS that actually have someone in my role, and that role is fully embedded within the organization. Some people have sports psychology or mental performance services that they kind of use external consultants, and they come in on a part-time basis. But City's really led the way with bringing someone being me, in full-time. And really what I do with my day-to-day is try and help athletes across the first team, the second team, and branching off into the academy, use their minds for them rather than against them when they perform. Now, it's not always about how do I perform in front of 22,500 people on a Saturday evening. It might just be how do I get through a training session perhaps when things aren't going really well, but also how do I continue to go down the right path of the way that I want to think, the way that I want to feel, and the way that I want to behave when things are going really well. So it's not just about bringing up the floor, as it were. It's about continuing to push the ceiling and really maximize strength that athletes have.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I do a little bit of work with some youth athletes, not at your level, of course, but I've kind of taken the stance that, there is mental health. We talk about some of the issues that a clinical psychologist would have, which I know that you're not, and I'm not as well. I got my degree in industrial organizational psychology, so workplace psychology, and that is certainly important, and May is really calling that out as important. But I also like to think about mental as a skill. We do foot skills training, we speed, agility training. There are dynamic warm-ups. There are things, Dr. Young, that I'm telling you did not exist when I was playing, just coming up to soccer. We did a couple of hurdle stretches and just started playing the game. We didn't do a lot of the things that are being done now. And from reading about it, I understand that overall, whether it's athletic training or any kind of performance, that, when it comes especially to athletics, that we're probably a little bit behind overall when it comes to not only teaching the skills of the sports, but how do you deal with that under pressure? And like you said, how do you train your mind to serve you in those moments?
These things have existed for a really long time, because a lot of the concepts come from sort of classical psychology, and really it's the application of those things to the sport context that's the relatively new thing. And if you think back to the 1970s, not a lot of anyone was doing any sort of real strength training outside of the bodybuilding world. I think it was probably, and I'm testing my recall here, I think it was the University of Nebraska maybe that were the first football team to bring on strength and conditioning. So we're a little bit behind the curve in the same way that strength and conditioning was behind the curve about 60 years ago now. So we're playing a little bit of catch up in terms of the field and how we're progressing forward. But we're starting to get more and more of a seat at the table, because coaches and administrators, and more importantly, athletes and players and performers, are starting to see the importance of this part of their game and want to add as many tools to their, metaphorical toolbox, as it were, to be able to deal with those demands of their performances.
Yeah, and players at the end of the day, they are human beings. They are not machines. And Dr. Young, I wanted to ask you, as part of what you do with St. Louis City SC, is it usually like one-to-one sessions, or there are also some sessions with the whole team? Can you share a little bit about that?
The majority of my work tends to be one-on-one at the moment. Obviously looking to try and expand and have a few more team things. But if I'm really trying to work with an athlete and dig into some things, of course, if we were in a group situation, there's some general concepts and pretty broad stroke things we can do. But really dialing into the nitty-gritty and the individual sort of bespoke or tailored approach to an individual is sort of best done on the individual level. So most of my time at present is spent with the individual players.
So a couple of things want to make sure we get to before we let you go for your evening is, one, I asked you last night, and it was so awesome. And I don't know if you can remember exactly what you said, but asked you for maybe a couple of suggestions for the audience. Performance is performance, whether I'm getting on a microphone or we're standing in front of people, whether we're job interviewing or we're out trying out for a team or performing in front of 22,000 plus people or on a world stage. There comes stress with performance. What are some things that we can all do and apply? And I'm also thinking about the young athletes out there to our daily lives and maybe our athletic performances when it comes to the 3 pounds of electrical energy between our ears.
That is a great question, and I know people love practical tips and practical advice. So here we go. For me, I think the biggest thing that anyone can do is set an intention for what it is that they're actually trying to achieve on the day to day. So it might be something like a job interview, or it might be something really specific and concrete that you're preparing for. And as you're preparing for that, you have an understanding of why you want to do something. You have an understanding of probably what it is that you want to do, what you want your outcome to be. But if you can set an intention of how you want to go about achieving that outcome. So if I'm in that job interview, do I want to appear confident? Do I want to be calm? Do I want to appear in control? If you set those things as your intention, then you can maybe pick one or two of those things and identify one or two really concrete behaviors of how you are going to go about and execute that. Now, it's not going to change the content of your interview. It's not going to change the way that you kick a ball or head a ball or hit a golf ball or a tennis ball. But it's going to give you a sort of a framework for you to be able to align your behaviors up to the way that you want to think, the way that you want to feel, and ultimately the way that you want to act. So it's kind of like when you're plugging into your GPS, the sat navigation that you've got in your car, you know where the destination is. Now all you have to do is follow the turn-by-turn directions in order to get there. And really, once you put the destination in, that's not important anymore. It is about following those directions. And if you have an understanding of where you're trying to go, it's much easier to align your behaviors towards that.
I love that. And I'll tell you, this is, I'm calling out now to anybody who's listening, right? All of our listeners, whether this is something you can use in your own workplace, or you've got kids and coaches. Dr. Young is offering. I bet you, Dr. Young, that I already signed up. I already signed up for your session. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm going to be first. I'm not going to lose out. But you're having a mental fitness workshop, I understand, on May 28th, Making Time for Your Well-Being with Dr. Young, presented by Purina. It'll be 6 to 8 p.m. at City Park. It's free, but space is limited. You can go to St. Louis City's website, Wellness Workshop. You can find it under, and if, of course, St. Louis City is really good about posting on X or Twitter. Any tidbits for what am I going to learn? And I'm excited.
Well, I'd love to continue to shroud it in mystery, but since you put me on the spot, for me, the goal is to really, provide a little bit of space for people to get exposed to some really science-backed tips on how they can improve their mental fitness, their well-being, however you want to phrase that, and give really meaningful, but really what I like to call snackable ways to deal with this, as opposed to thinking about, okay, I've got this massive thing that I have to undertake. How can I perhaps break it down and use this a little bit, but often throughout my day, and have an overall positive impact on my mental fitness or my mental well-being? So that's the goal. And now you've set the bar pretty lofty, so I'm going to have to follow through with it.
Well, I look forward to it very much. Dr. Greg Young, certified mental performance consultant with St. Louis City SC. He is their director of mental performance. You will occasionally, if you look him up now, you'll probably notice him around the pitch. And I definitely see you at training and enjoy learning from you each and every time. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Dr. Greg Young, don't miss out on his workshop. I think it's going to be great. And I think the more we turn focus to whether it's mental health and or mental fitness, or how we choose to think about the situations that we are in, the better we all do. More to come. Jim Leaker, president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. They've got a dinner coming up. Santi and I can't go. We'll be working, but we'll talk to Jim on the other side of the break and find out what's going to happen this weekend right here on KMOX.
If you have a problem with the IRS, believe me, it's not
I love its tie also into the social emotional part of the game, and then getting Dr. Greg Young to talk about the mental performance, which is really also social and emotional. Did you learn anything from your time with Dr. Young in the booth or tonight?
Yes, it was amazing to talk to him last night and also today. Just those little tidbits about the mental part, and not only in sports but also personally. It was great that he provided some tips for our listeners, and I'm looking forward to that workshop on May 28th.
Awesome. I will see you there. Well, we're going to turn our attention a little bit to more St. Louis soccer. Different point of view, St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. Joining us now, Jim Leaker, the president of the St. Louis City Soccer Hall of Fame, joining us now to talk about the event this weekend that is annual. I've been to it several times. I enjoy myself. I enjoy seeing all the green jackets in the room, the players who have been honored over the years, and then bringing in a new induction class for 2024. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I think I needed Dr. Young maybe around 14 years ago.
Man, didn't we all?
Took over the Hall of Fame.
That's right. Right? Performance is performance is performance. It's all stressful.
That's right. In all aspects.
Yeah, and pulling off your event is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, and I got a bunch of guys that are on the committee, and my daughter does a bang-up job helping out with the tickets and setting everybody in the proper spots. I mean, it's just an unbelievable get together, and it's like I said, it's become a labor of love to everybody to participate in.
Jim, so let's talk about the inductees this year. Obviously, we know everybody is really accomplished, but if you can give us a quick review of who is getting inducted this year, that'd be great.
Yeah. Mike Bono is I try to give you in some sort of a alphabetical listing. Mike Bono was a standout at Merrimack, All-American at Merrimack, and then he went down to South Florida to play his college career. But he also came back to St. Louis and became a bang-up coach for the JV Marine teams, and also St. Ambrose. So he's the first one. Bill Fan was a 4-year starter at Quincy. He still holds a number of records, even though he's been out of school probably for 25 or 30 years.
Wow!
For scoring, yeah. So what a great player he is. Sad to say, but we were wishing that he'd be able to get here to make it. To his induction, because we knew it was going to happen someday, but sadly we lost Mark Fredrickson a couple of years ago. But Kathy Fredrickson, his wife, will be speaking in his behalf. Just a great player from St. Louis U, who also played with the Steamers and the Storm, played with the LA Lasers. Just a great player and a great individual. Tom Hayes, the brother of John Hayes, who's already in the Hall of Fame, but Tom has a record of his own. All-American at St. Louis U, 2-time most valuable player in the Bronze Boot games, and he also went on to play the indoor game. And a lot of these guys actually played for me on my Cootis team after their college years were over, and they still wanted to play some outdoor soccer. The next one is Chris Klein. Chris was a DeSmet graduate who went on to Indiana and was part of, I believe it was either 1 or 2 championships. But his claim to fame is that he went on to play with the Kansas City Wizards, the MLS team that was in Colorado, and he ended up his career with the LA Galaxy. And up until a couple of years ago, he was actually the president of the LA Galaxy club. And sad to say, he bit the bullet. They had to make a change, and there was something to do with negotiations. But Chris, what a great individual! I actually sent the message to the people who handled David Beckham to see if David could come into the banquet, but I never did hear back from him. That would have been a great get if we would have been able to get David Beckham to come in.
That's right. And then I think you still have a few more that's going to be in induction class.
Yeah. Michelle McCarthy Restovic.
I played Michelle. I played it with and against Michelle. She had sticky tape on her feet.
Michelle,
she's so good.
Just a peach of a young lady. She's and her daughter's on the national team, on the under-19 national team.
Grace Restovich. She's also amazing. She scrimmaged actually my daughter the other day, and my daughter was like, "She's so good," and I'm like, "She must play like her mom."
And we just I pulled over because I just left everybody. We had our meet and greet for the class tonight, where we tried to take all the pictures and get all the pictures out of the way so they could just have the rest of the night, Saturday night, just a fun time to, kibitz with their families and friends. But her daughter, she's heading to Spain. I was with Bill McDermott. I said, Bill, I think our first trips out of St. Louis was maybe to Chicago, and we thought we were going, to the greatest venue ever. Just to go to Chicago. She's going to Spain.
Right.
It's unbelievable what's changed.
And I think we got three more, right? We didn't want to miss Denny Lee, John Stahl, and Joe Reiniger.
Yeah, Denny Lee, great player who actually started at Harris Stowe and then went to Rockhurst, where he stayed at Rockhurst while he graduated and stayed in the Kansas City area and helped Tony Tocco with the Rockhurst men's team. But he also took care of coaching a high school team, a men's and ladies, boys and girls high school team, winning many championships. I think he was there for about 20 years before he retired. John Stahl was a standout at Lewis and Clark, who went on to become an All-American goalkeeper at UMSL. And during his time, Harry Keogh said that John Stahl was probably the best keeper in St. Louis. So that's a quite a get for John. And naturally, Joe Reiniger, what a tremendous indoor and outdoor player. All-American, most valuable player at SIU Edwardsville. And then the career that he had with in the indoor game is by far as good as Daryl Duran, and just a nice young man. And but we also have a couple of our we're bringing back. We brought back last year the Mount Senior Jimmy Johnston Award. This year it's going to Joey Clark. Joe Clark recently announced his retirement from coaching. 41 years of coaching at St. Louis U. He was there for 17 years, and the rest of them were at Washington U. He's not only a great coach, but he was a great player. Olympic player, All-American at St. Louis U, a couple of NCAA championships under his belt.
Awesome, Jim. I don't want to cut you off. We only got about a minute left. I want to be sure. Can people still get dinner tickets? And with the order form, it's the 54th anniversary, May 18th, 2024.
Yeah,
St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. Are you sold out?
I'd like to say no, not sold out, but we've basically filled the place that we wanted to. If we could do this about 2 months before our next banquet, we'd be happy to make the announcement and get people from the soccer community that maybe don't get the emails or get the letters that they can come to the game or they can come to the banquet. It's a fun event. You'll rub elbows with some of the great soccer players in St. Louis: Pat McBride, Al Trost, Pete Sorber. It's a night to be remembered. But I wanted to, Mark Giesing is our high school coach of the year, recently retired from Lindbergh. And our two future stars are Emily Derucki, who's at Lafayette, going to Mizzou, and Grant Locker, who's at St. Louis U, who's going to University of Marquette, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be a great event. Like I said, a lot of people, a lot of laughs will take place, and maybe a few tears from laughter.
Thanks,
so we're
Jim.
hoping that it's going to, yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Have a great night, and I look forward to pictures being posted.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jim.
Everybody. Okay.
There's Jim Leaker, president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. Their 54th anniversary dinner and induction for all the new 2024 inductees will be on May 18th. We look forward to follow them on Facebook. You'll often see the updates there. We'll wrap it up. Santiago and I on the St. Louis City Soccer Report right on the other side on KMOX.
I'm Brian Westbrook.
Continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Wrapping up the St. Louis City Soccer Report here on KMOX. Jennifer Cease, Kyle Sixta on the controls, Santiago Beltran, my guest host. Santiago, I want to say thank you so much for for being on. It's so fun to always work with you on the training pitch, in the press conference room, booth to booth, and of course in the KMOX studios, and listening, of course, to Flyover Footy podcast. I hope you had fun today. We covered a lot.
I did. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking soccer with you. And before we finish, I just want to remind the listeners that in addition to City, there is a lot of soccer going on in St. Louis this summer. There are multiple teams in St. Louis in different leagues. This weekend, St. Charles FC has their home opener. They have a men's and a women's team. Sunday is the home opener for the men's team. They play in the United Soccer League 2, which is part of the United Soccer League Championship, which is second division. They are in the third tier of that league. Also, Club Atlético St. Louis, they play in the National Premier Soccer League. ITAR FC, that they sign Sam Fink, a legend for St. Louis FC, which used to play in the second division. Also, UPSL teams, not only City Academy, also St. Louis Fusion FC, 314 Soccer Club. And if you want to find more information about all these teams and all this soccer going on, go to stlsoccernews.com. Chris Gebhardt has been great at curating
we got to get him on.
all this content about what's going on in St. Louis professionally and semi-professional teams.
Awesome. Thank you, Santi, for joining me tonight. Thanks again, Kyle, for running everything. Thanks to all of our guests who appeared on the show to make it so great, from Dale Schilly to Maurice Adu, George Gansner, Courtney Miller, and, of course, Jim Leaker, along with Dr. Greg Young. St. Louis City and Cincinnati. In Cincinnati, 6 o'clock pregame, 6:30 kickoff on our sister station, Y98. Thanks so much for listening to the KMOX St. Louis City Soccer Report.
When you retire, you leave a lot behind. The daily grind, the long commute, and yes, even the alarm clock. But the one thing that you take with you, a tax bill. Oh,